As cleanup efforts continue in Florida, residents are still coming to terms with the massive damage that Hurricane Ian inflicted.
Let's go to Gloria Pasmino, who's live in Fort Myers, Florida, with the latest.
And you can see recovery efforts begin to take shape on your way into Lee County, which is where I am right now. This area of Florida has about half of the fatalities as a result of Hurricane Ian so far. The devastation here in Lee County is widespread. And even though emergency vehicles and power vehicles are making their way in, recovery is going to take a long time. Ian tore through Florida. Crews remain in active search and rescue.
We are working hard to try and safely get you out. So once we get through this stage, then we can work on rebuilding.
More than 1,600 people have been rescued from Ian's wake so far, according to Florida's governor. Ian made landfall as a Category 4 storm last Wednesday, decimating coastal towns, flooding inland cities, and completely cutting off island communities.
There's nothing left. I don't know. I am optimistic. It's heartbreaking for all those families, for all those businesses. That's why I'm very sad.
Floridians now face the daunting task of rebuilding as they return to unrecognizable cities and towns.
It does add to the complexity of the process. It's been hard to get things here with I-75 shut down. That's been an issue. And the 62% of our population that's over 65 is a problem. And that problem means they need a lot more care and assistance.
Power outages are also hindering recovery efforts. Florida Power and Light says they are working around the clock, aiming to have electricity restored to most by the end of the week.
Filled with sand, debris, patio furniture that ended up in the electrical vault. And this is some of the challenges that our crews have in actually restoring power.
And here in Lee County, the electricity situation remains extremely difficult. Much of the power grid was wiped out, likely meaning that recovering the power will take weeks, if not months. But even in all of the despair, there is a little bit of hope. You can see this gentleman here behind me. He has been trying to get his bike up and running over the last couple of hours. It was deep in floodwaters just over the last couple of days. He finally got it started and went for a ride. So just a little bit of hope and positivity even amid all of this devastation. Reporting live in Fort Myers Beach, Gloria Pasmino, back to you.
We want to continue our team coverage now by bringing in Chris Wynn in Washington, D.C. Chris, I want to talk about the economic impact from the storm. What's it looking like for there in Florida?
Well, Jonathan, the economic impact from Hurricane Ian could be so severe that it could potentially cut up to 3 points off Florida's third quarter GDP. So why does this all matter? Well, Florida is a major contributor to the U.S. economy. So now we're looking at impacts to energy production as well as the destruction of crops throughout the region. As you know, it's hard to talk about Florida without mentioning oranges. We're expected to see some price hikes there, as well as potential impacts to lumber and electronics. Plus, much like Hawaii, the state of Florida is very reliant on tourism. So that industry is expected to take a big hit. And across the state, we're hearing that Hurricane Ian may have caused upwards of $47 billion in damage. That's according to the latest estimate. Jonathan?
Yeah, Chris, I hate that I have to ask about this, but we're hearing about some scams out there, too. Can you explain that?
Yeah, on top of the pain and devastation that these folks are having to deal with, local officials now are sounding the alarm on everything from scams related to repairs, to water treatment, to FEMA insurance scams. So it's really incredible that this is something that they're now having to deal with on top of the devastation that they're seeing in their communities. Earlier today, the sheriff of Lee County even went out and warned folks about this and telling would-be crooks to not mess with his residents. Jonathan?
All right, Chris, and something we always talk about here in Hawaii as well is the supply chain. Very important to us here in the islands. What's it doing there in Florida? What's it looking like for the Florida coast?
Well, overall, that remains to be seen. But if I can share one small bright spot with you, Jonathan, it's that several key ports in Florida as well as South Carolina were able to resume options pretty quickly after the storm passed through those areas. Jonathan?
All right, Chris, thank you for that update. Hope to check back in with you very soon. Happening today, the man in charge of defueling Red Hill will be holding a press conference. Rear Admiral John Wade was recently appointed the commander of the Joint Task Force Red Hill. On Friday, the head of the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, visited Red Hill and met with families affected by the drinking water crisis. The meeting was private, and officials would not tell us how many families were there. But in a statement, Secretary Austin said the closing of Red Hill is, quote, the right thing to do. Look for more coverage from today's press conference coming up a little bit later on your HNN digital platform. A body discovered by a fisherman in a river in Washington state has been identified as a former resident of Hawaii Island. Authorities identified the body as 34-year-old Brandy Ibanez. She grew up in Pahala and left Hawaii for Washington in 2013. Her body was found in the Columbia River on Tuesday. According to her older sister, they hadn't heard from her in 2 weeks. She tells us Brandy was a victim of domestic violence and police have a suspect in custody.
I just wanted everybody to know my sister's story. She was a victim of domestic violence. And I think if we had harsher laws here, things like this wouldn't happen. And I don't think anybody should go through this. Especially that she leaves 2 young kids behind.
Friends of Ibanez are encouraging anyone who experiences domestic violence to seek help. Police are still investigating what happened. In this update to pass along, Hawaii Island police have identified the body that was found partially buried on a remote road. Officials identified the victim as 36-year-old George Edward Dodge of Mountain View. Authorities said Dodge was reported missing on July 7th after not being seen or heard from in a couple weeks. Police said the badly decomposed body was exhumed from a shallow grave found on the side of Highway 11 south of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park's boundaries. Officials said an autopsy ruled the manner of death a homicide. Anyone with any information about this case is asked to call Hawaii County Police.
A lot happening in Washington this week. Joining us now is Hawaii News Now White House correspondent John Decker. John, thank you very much for joining us. Always great talking with you. Now, the first day of the new term of the Supreme Court, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson officially sworn in. Now, what are the major cases on the docket this term?
Well, there are 2 cases that I think will get a lot of attention early on in this fall term. We already have a date for when one of those cases will be heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. That's October the 31st for an affirmative action case. It involves the admissions policies for both Harvard University and the University of North Carolina. And what Asian Americans who brought this case in the first place are arguing is that these admission policies unfairly discriminate against Asian Americans. And so what we'll see is whether or not the Supreme Court abides by previous precedents that it has set in previous court cases before the High Court, in which they determine that race can be figured as a factor, not the factor, but a factor in terms of college admissions. So that's happening in just a few weeks. The other case that I think is going to get a lot of attention is a case which pits religious freedom versus free speech rights versus an anti-discrimination law. We're talking about a case emanating from Colorado a website designer there says that her Christian beliefs prevent her from designing websites for same-sex couples who are getting married. And so the Supreme Court will evaluate her claims and also figure out whether what she is advocating runs up against a Colorado anti-discrimination law. It sounds a lot like a case that the Supreme Court heard a few years ago in which they upheld the rights of a baker in Colorado not to make cakes for same-sex couples. So we'll keep our eye on that as well.
Now, a recent Gallup poll about the Supreme Court yielded some interesting results. What were the key takeaways?
I think the big takeaway is the top line result, which is 58% disapproval rating for the U.S. Supreme Court. What we've seen in recent years is a decline, an erosion in approval of the U.S. Supreme Court. It's viewed by many as a political institution. That is not what the Chief Justice John Roberts wants the Supreme Court to be viewed as, and he's doing a lot to, he says, repair the image of the U.S. Supreme Court. But that 58%, that's an all-time high. We've never seen a disapproval rating for the Supreme Court so high.
Fascinating stuff. Now, finally, I mean, the clock is ticking, John. 5 weeks until Election Day from tomorrow. What are the key Senate races we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, for Republicans, they see opportunities for pickups in 2 states in particular. One is Nevada, where Senator Catherine Cortez Masto is running for re-election. She's a Democrat. She's being challenged by Adam Laxalt, the state's former state attorney general. That's a race that right now is within the margin of error, no matter what poll you're looking at. The other state is Georgia. That's where you have Senator Raphael Warnock. He's a Democrat. He's running for a full 6-year term. He's running against the former football player Herschel Walker. That, too, is a race which is right within the margin of error. It's all going to come down to turnout. Which side can turn out their side more as it relates to who's going to win each of those elections. And then on the Democratic side, you have 3 states that are possible pickup opportunities, I believe. One is Pennsylvania, one is Ohio, and the third one is Wisconsin. And aside from Ohio and Wisconsin, you have the race in Pennsylvania. It's an open seat, and right now the Democrat, the lieutenant governor, is running ahead outside the margin of error, beating Mehmet Oz. But then again, that too will come down to turnout, who comes out on Election Day, and they have early voting, so who's already submitting their ballots ahead of Election Day.
That's the kind of drama that comes with an election year. You gotta love it. Hawaii News Now White House correspondent John Decker, thank you very much. Have a great one. Moving over to the NFL, Dolphins quarterback and Hawaii native Tua Tagovailoa remains in the concussion protocol, and league-wide, a new concussion policy is expected following his injuries. Stephanie Gosk explains.
Repercussions after Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa appeared to sustain 2 head injuries just days apart. One of the doctors who cleared Tua to play has been fired.
I expect the highest level of medical expertise. And when we make decisions to terminate people, it's in respect to all of those considerations.
The NFL is reviewing safety guidelines and is expected to update concussion protocols. The league and the league's Players Association will reportedly interview Tua as part of their probe into what went wrong, according to ESPN, citing anonymous sources.
What's important is that we get this right, and if we need to make a change and make things better, that carries us forward and helps us do a better job.
The investigation coming after 2 injuries last week. First, this hard hit during a game against the Buffalo Bills. Tua returned later that game, and 4 days later was back on the field and sacked again.
You could see both his hands. You just get right away, you get concerned.
This time the QB lay motionless for over 7 minutes before being taken to the hospital for evaluation. While Miami's head coach Mike McDaniel says concussion protocols were followed, the handling of Tua's injuries questioned ahead of NBC's Sunday Night Football.
I think you always err on the side of caution there, and I was surprised he went back in.
And earlier, former NFL coach Rex Ryan weighing in.
Would you put your son back in that game? No way in hell I put my son back in that game. No way in hell. And you know what? No way in hell I put somebody else's son back out there either. Yeah. This is an epic fail.
It highlights the intense pressure for professional athletes to play no matter what. Cardinals defensive end J.J. Watt taking the field Sunday just days after he says he went into atrial fibrillation. Watt tweeted he had his heart shocked back into rhythm on Thursday.
Once my heart was reset, they said, "You're fine if you feel comfortable."
The NFL's chief medical officer says any player with health concerns is evaluated by the team and independent consultants before playing.
And that was Stephanie Gosk reporting, and as expected, Tua will not be playing this coming Sunday against the New York Jets, but obviously his football status is the lowest priority. Top priority is his health and well-being, as he suffered some heavily serious injuries over the past couple of weeks, and we'll wait and see how the league progresses and, seems to be changing its concussion protocol as the league is coming under heavy scrutiny right now.
And I know we'll have more about that story that's still developing on our later editions of H&N. Want to take you live outside right now to New York City. Look, it's looking pretty wet out there in the Big Apple. I assume this is some of the remnants from Hurricane Ian now making its way up the East Coast. We could be getting some more rain as well here on the islands. You know who knows about that? Guy Hoggy.
On Wednesday, you can see there's going to be another source of moisture that's going to come in from the south. So look for a few more showers, especially for the east end of the state. So for the start of Ironman, we're talking Thursday morning, should be fairly dry. But as the day progresses, that moisture is going to move up. So it's going to be a wet afternoon for the Big Island, it looks like, according to this model. And then on Friday, things should start to clear up with a few minor splashes here and there. But with that moisture so close, we could see a few more showers as well. And then for the next start of Ironman, which is Saturday morning, the Big Island should start out fairly clear. We're still going to have some moisture around the central part of the state. So get ready for some rain coming and going from time to time. And then by Saturday in the afternoon for Ironman, they're going to see those clouds pop up. It's going to be mostly cloudy for the finish. And then looks like Monday, another front drops in. So even though we're not going to see a lot of rain cumulatively, there will be some passing showers from time to time. Again, that moisture comes up between Wednesday and Thursday, mainly for the Big Island, and then it kind of lingers around from time to time. But we still are expecting lots of leeward sunshine throughout the time period and very warm temperatures, especially with the light winds and the higher humidity levels.
All right, this is something the internet is talking about. Mark, how do you like your Spam?
Oh, very well done. I like a little bit of a crisp and crunch to it.
Yeah, I like the glaze.
Others go with just the real quick sear, and it's a real thick slice. No,
Yeah.
I like thin and crunchy.
And I think I prefer it on fried rice, right? That's my way to go.
I mean, any kind of rice, but yes.
Yes.
That's
All
a
right.
bonus.
So here's why we're talking about Spam. There's this article out, saw it on CNN. It's trending, getting some traction out there. Read the headline, How Spam Became Cool Again. Well, if you're living here on the islands, it's always been cool, right?
Never went away.
Never went out of style. But the article reports about how the 85-year-old canned meat has undergone what it calls a cultural reinvention. So get this, Hormel has sold a record amount of Spam for 7 straight years. And so it looks like that trend is going to continue for 2022. It's on track for another milestone year. The company says it cannot make the Spam fast enough. It's even increasing production, at least according to the CNN article. Spam is also trending on TikTok. Take a look at this video of how you can make this awesome, delicious looking, like fried egg Spam. It looks with some tempura there. Man, that looks delicious.
Just that one shot, though, where it was just hollowed out.
Yeah.
It
looks better when it's cooked. See, it looks delicious there. All right, so you'll recall how trendy it's been. This was I think this was actually 2019 when they came out with this limited edition Spam pumpkin spice flavor. Well, it sold out in minutes, and you can still find this, Mark, on eBay. It's the only place you can get it right now. Going for $100 a can, and it's still good because Spam does not go bad.
Exactly. Always a timeless classic in many forms.
It'll last a while.
No, Spam is so versatile.
The article points out some edgy and clever advertising is also contributing to an uptick in sales. So,
beautiful.
Lot of Spam news out there today.
Right, exactly. And the sales are high for a reason, because it's delicious.
It's good.
I was thinking the other day that the Spam musubi is probably one of the greatest food inventions ever, because it's so versatile, can be eaten at any time.
I wrote this down. 7 million cans per year alone for Hawaii. That's just for Hawaii. So, and I was actually a late bloomer for Spam. As a kid, I would never not touch the stuff. But when I moved here over a decade ago, incorporated it into my diet and into my breakfast especially, and into that fried rice, and I'm a believer.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Iconic. Now, talking about some other favorite foods, Taco Bell. They make some great stuff, but here's something you don't see often. A fast food chain apologizing for poor menu choices. Taco Bell is slated to run a new ad campaign centered on saying sorry for its past breakfast menu, which included items such as the naked egg taco and waffle taco. And the Bell says, it, quote, over-innovated, and in breakfast, you have to be consistent. Pete Davidson will be starring in the commercials. I think Taco Bell's being a little too hard on itself, but I appreciate the honesty there, huh?
I am all about the basics at breakfast, but also put a little Spam in there, Taco Bell. Why not?
Yeah, Taco Bell, what they have done, too, recently with the Mexican pizza craze, taking it off the menu, bringing it back, creating such a frenzy that it sells out. But it's my understanding that it's back, and it's back here for good.
I've heard some talkers about it. Yeah, some people excited about that one. People also excited about this coming to the KGMB lineup this week. What is old is new again. We're talking about the Love Boat, and to get a preview, let's turn it over to two of the stars.
Look, what are you doing? I loved that show when I was a kid.
Jerry, no need to watch The Love Boat. We're aboard the real Love Boat.
Let's go.
The Real Love Boat is a dating adventure show. It's 10 singles, 5 men and 5 women, mingling, looking for love.
The original show was about people who lost that spark, trying to get that spark reignited.
That's who the singles are on The Real Love Boat, and they're all super good looking.
I'm super excited to embark on this journey of love.
I can't find love in my city. I might as well go on a ship and travel the Mediterranean.
Tired of being lonely and single.
I'm ready to find my person.
The singles will be joined by our ship's delightful crew.
Cruise director Matt, Ezra the bartender, and we've got Captain Paolo, an actual captain.
My role is matchmaking, if you will. If the connection is deep and strong, you got nothing to worry about.
I get to go out and help singles find their perfect match. Are you kidding me?
It is going to be chaotic, it is going to be sexy, and it is going to be a lot of fun.
If you love the challenges on The Amazing Race and Survivor, you're going to love this show. The challenges are similar. They're set in the most beautiful locations in the Mediterranean.
It just takes you to a whole new world.
Lots of new worlds. Every port was a new world. The winners of the challenges get to sit at the captain's table, and they also get the key to the Real Love Boat suite.
I actually don't have many expectations.
I just want to see what catches are at sea.
Everyone else here is looking for the same thing. You are flat out gorgeous.
We end up with an odd number of men and women, so there's always one person who doesn't get picked.
When you're eliminated from the Real Love Boat, you're getting left at the dock. Arrivederci.
Winners get $50,000 and a dream cruise around the world.
I cannot wait to explore the world.
I do love getting out of my comfort zone.
That's what it actually takes to find love.
It is going to be a wild ride.
I'm ready. I've been built for this moment.
It's people looking for love and people finding love.
Yes.
It's really sweet.
Wasn't expecting that reality show twist there. Yeah.
Looks like a fun time, huh?
Yeah. As you can see right there on the graphic, coming to KGMB this Wednesday during prime time. Don't want to miss that one. That's for sure. I've never seen the show, honestly, but I've definitely heard the theme song over and over in the past, but I never saw the original one.
Well, time to set sail.
Yeah. I'm sure it's somewhere. I'll YouTube it later. All right, that's it for This Is Now. Mark's back first at 4 on KHNL. Get all the updates of the day there. We're also expecting a press conference from Red Hill officials coming up in just minutes.